Hello Nick, this is the testing for your Crown 3UZ 6-speed, so 04 to 08. Obviously we've fully rebuilt it for you, so it's all brand new going through there. This is a left-hand drive model, so obviously coming off on the right bank over here to go inside the vehicle. Everything is labeled for you, so you can see there ignition 4, on coil 4, etc. So the whole harness is fully labeled. What we're going to do now is we're just going to cut through to show you what it looks like underneath here. So you can see it's all been considerably twisted and covered in the heat shrink to environmentally seal it. So we'll do that now and we'll come back in a second. Okay, so we're back now, so you can see what it looks like underneath there. So nice and simple running of the harness. Obviously you've got this bit at the back here. You've got your 2 earth straps that go over there. You've got your 1 earth strap that goes over there. We've got our starter harness, or I call it starter knock harness because it goes underneath the V-bank to your 2 knock sensors and your starter solenoid. Obviously you're going to have your main battery power cable in your vehicle installed there as well. Coming around the side here, obviously you've got your 4 coils, you've got your 4 injectors. You've got your cam sensor over here. Then coming down here, you've got your oil control valve for the right bank. You've got your engine coolant temperature. You've got your 6-pin throttle sensor plug because it's a 6-speed. And coming down here, we've got your alternator plug. So obviously you've got the big 4-pin style alternator plug and your lambda sensor. We're just using an adapter to go to the 3-pin style plug there, just to make sure it all works correctly as it should. And then coming up here, you've got your MAF sensor. Now yours is a Crown, so you need to make sure that you get the correct part number. I'll give that to you when you send the harness over, so you get the correct one for the Crown. All right, coming around this side over here, obviously you've got it coming around there. It is designed to use P-clamps and bolted onto there and onto there. But again, same story, you've got your 4 coils, your 4 injectors, your cam sensor over there. Coming forward, you've got your oil control valve over here. As a 6-speed, you've got nothing on the throttle on this side. Then you're coming down, you've got your cam sensor on the front here. This is obviously designed to clip into these little clips that go here for you, and you can attach it onto there via a clip as well. Then you're coming through down here. You've got your crank sensor over there. You've got your oil pressure switch over there, and then coming down through here to your lambda plug. So we don't take the lambdas down the back here because it brings it really close to the exhaust. We bring it down here so it's plenty far away from the exhaust. And obviously your aircon pump would normally be here. All right, so we've got all of that going through over there. So that's all cool. And we'll come around to the actual ECU over here. So coming down here, you've got your pedal plug, which is your 6-pin DTM one. Obviously you're using the IS250 350 pedal. You've got your 2 plugs over here, which are your body section. They come off, go to here. So your 1 section comes off the harness here, goes into your fuse box and these 2 plugs here. So that's from your harness. Then coming over here, you've got your plug that you wire into the vehicle to make everything work. Now, because it's an auto, we've got a big 21-pin plug. There's quite a lot going on in here. So I'm just going to run through those now quickly with you. I've got your sheet from your welcome pack here so I can refer to my notes. But we'll start with the very basic stuff. So 2 we've taken out to supply power for the testing is the 2 red 14 gauge wires. They just need a permanent 12 volt supply, not an ignition 12 volt supply. Gray is your 12 volts for your fuel pump. Obviously we've got the fuel pump hooked up there, so those wires are the white ones that you can see in there. Okay, so those are those ones. Then the very basic stuff, you've got your black with your red, that's your ignition 12 volts. We've got your black with the yellow, that is your start signal, so 12 volt start signal from there. You've got your pink and blue, that's your alternator light for your dash. You've got your yellow and your black, that is your oil pressure switch for your dash. We've then got white and blue, now that's your brake switch. Now this needs 12 volts when you press brakes. Normally Toyotas have a 4-wire brake system, so in other words the ECU knows when the brakes are pressed and when they're not pressed. So we take care of that with a relay in here, so there's no need to worry about that. You just need to supply 12 volts to that wire from your brake pedal switch. Okay. We've got yellow with a red, that's your check engine light, Also, the check engine light's inside the fuse box, this little LED, so you don't have to wire that up. You can always see it there. You've got your yellow, which is your tacho signal, and so we've got little clocks all hooked up so we can see that tacho signal coming through. And sorry, I didn't mean you don't have to wire it up. I mean you don't have to wire it up to start the engine, and you can tell that the ECU is on. Do wire it up because it's very useful to have. Okay, now moving on to the stuff that's related to the auto. Okay, so we're going to start here. We've got red and blue. So that is your reverse light. Yep, red and blue is reverse lights. That's going to give you 12 volts for a reverse light. Then we've got green. So there's a green wire over here. Okay. Now that's drive. It's not really used for anything other than to go into sports mode or manual mode. So that green wire, that gives you 12 volts, and that's what you're going to wire to your shifter, because that's where the system gets its 12 volt supply when you put it into, you know, when you on the gear shifter, you've got park, reverse, neutral, drive, and then you move it sideways to S, so you can use the Tiptronic shifting. So that's the wire you're going to use for that one over there. Okay, then let's take a look. We have got blue, red. So I'm just referring to my notes here as we go along. So blue, red. Okay, that is our blue, red. That's shift down. Okay, so that needs to be supplied on earth, and that'll go to your shifter. Okay, but if you want to use paddles on steering wheels, you just use these, and then you obviously can supply ground to it via a switch, and that'll go shift down. Then moving on to shift up, that's going to be blue and yellow. So here you go, we got blue and yellow over there, so that's going to be your shift up. And then coming on to the S or manual mode, that's going to be your red and yellow. We are going to test all of this so I can actually see in the data. You can see whether the sports mode is activated, and then we'll touch each of the shift up, shift down wires, and you'll see that that's activated on the system as well there. Okay, then we've got blue down here, and that's for your cruise control switch. So you can use a Toyota cruise control switch, and that'll all work because your auto, it's got all the correct signals to the ECU for that. All right, and you've got your OBD2 plug, which obviously is CAN communication because 6-speed. So obviously you can pull a lot of data from there. If you want to get one of those little dashes that work with OBD2, you can pull a whole load of data out there, things like gear position, coolant temp, etc., etc. So that might be quite handy for you as well. Okay, so those are all the wires there. This is obviously the pack that you're going to get. It does go into detail and explain everything that you do there. Obviously the OBD2 is just crossed out, there's nothing to connect. You just plug in an OBD2 reader and you'll pick it up from there. Okay, so test that we're going to do today. Obviously, we're going to look at the little dash lights, so things like the alternator oil lights. I've got little LEDs here. We've got the dash for the check engine light over there. The OBD2, obviously, we've got the diagnostic machine here, so we'll plug it in, make sure that it all works. We're going to test the fuel pump from the TechStream device while we're here. Then we're going to go to the gear selector. So you can see over here, this is your solenoid plug. That's your output speed sensor, your input speed sensor, and there's your selector. We're going to do a few tests with that. So what we're going to do first of all is move the selector, and we'll be able to see on the ECU when it goes park, reverse, neutral, drive. And then what we'll be able to do is that'll fall nicely in with the park neutral switch as well. So what we'll do is I'll put it into, say, drive or reverse on the selector, and you'll see that obviously the vehicle won't start. So that's working as it should do. Then we're going to basically look at the brake switch. So we're going to apply 12 volts to that white and blue wire, and we'll see on the ECU, it'll tell us that the brake switch is depressed. Then we'll go and we'll activate the sports and manual mode. Again, it'll show up on the data here. And then we'll take the shift up, shift down wires. And then what we're going to do is it'll actually show us on the system here that that is working correctly. Okay, once we've gone through all of that, then obviously we're going to actually start the engine up. We're going to be testing things like the drive-by-wire. So we'll rev it with the accelerator pedal. We'll use the diagnostic machine to test the 2 VVT-i solenoids, make sure that they're all working correctly. We'll go over to the dash to look at the tach signal, so we'll see that that's working correctly. Then what I'm going to do is go around and I'm just going to literally undo. So these aren't actually clipped on properly. They're just resting on here. So I'm going to go around and boom, 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 pull them off one by one. That'll show you that each cylinder is misfiring when I pull them off, so that all cylinders are firing correctly. The starter will obviously be part of the fact that it starts, that it works. The ACIS or acoustic control induction system. So that's this little valve over here at the back of the engine. So when she starts up, you're going to see she's going to move from her up position, which is resting, and she's going to come down like that. All right. And then last but not least, we'll then go over to the codes. Now, obviously, we will have codes for gearbox because we don't have a 6-speed gearbox to physically plug in here. But on the TechStream system, gearbox and engine are completely different. So we'll look at the engine, make sure we got no codes in there, make sure we're happy with that. and then I'll show you, obviously you can go into the gearbox separately over there. Okay, so first of all, we've got these two LEDs hooked up over here. Let me just remove the torch. So one's on because obviously it's a permanent 12 volt supply because I'm using it for ignition, and you can see it's connected to the yellow with the black and the pink with the blue. So once we turn the ignition on, we then should have both lights on. We'll also have the check engine light on, so I'm just going to quickly do that now. So again, black with a red wire. Just going to give that 12 volts. So straight away you can see now we've got both lights on, that's alternator and oil. We've got an LED on in the dash, and we've got our light on there. Now with the 6 speeds, they don't like incandescent bulbs. You'll see that one's pretty dim. So if you have an incandescent bulb for your check engine light, replace it with an LED. As you can see, LED works absolutely fine. Incandescent bulb, just not enough power to actually pack it up to full light from this. That's just something to bear in mind. So dash lights were absolutely fine. We're going to go through now and we're going to go into the text stream. Okay, so encodes. So now this is the live data. So you can see here we've got coolant temp 34, intake M22, etc, etc. So just to show, I'm just going to go into system select. So you'll see it comes up as a crown. Okay. And you can see here we've got physically engine and gearbox separated on there. So for now we're going to go onto the engine side from there. So first thing we want to do is we want to test the fuel pump out. So all we're going to do now is, now that we're in engine, we're going to go to active test. Okay, quite a few. Not that one. Okay, I'm going to go into there. Okay, and you can hear the relay clicking. So I'll just turn it off and on a few times. So first of all, the relay. Okay. Second of all, the actual fuel pump. I don't know if you're able to hear it from there. Okay, so we're happy with that. Obviously, in this case, I do have a video on how the fuel pumps are controlled by various different models. So do feel free to pop onto that video, and there's a much more detailed explanation of how it works. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to go over to the gear selector. So what I'm actually going to do now is I'm going to pick this up gently. Okay, gently place it down there. Okay. And now we've got our gear selector here all plugged in. So what I'm going to quickly go and do here now is I'm going to roll down to the information that we need. Right, okay. So at the moment you can see their neutral position switch is obviously activated. Right, so system select, we're going to go to electronically controlled transmission, I'm going to go to data list, okay, let's go from there. Okay, so just to give you a brief rundown here, you can see there's park range, so park is now on, then you've got obviously we'll test that in a minute as part of the switch to the manual mode. Then you've got R for reverse, N for neutral. Coming down here you've got D. Okay, so in the moment we're in park, all I'm going to do is flick through it. So as I flick down to the next one, you can hear the click. There we go to park. So it goes park, reverse, neutral, drive. So now reverse activates. Next one down we've got neutral. Next one down we've got drive. Okay, so that's all working as it should. So drive. Then we're going to go back to neutral, back to R, and back to park. Okay, so I'll leave that there for a second. I do apologize, it's a much longer video with the auto. We've got a lot more to go through over there. So now we've done the gear selector. Now what we're going to do is the actual brake switch itself. So I'm just going to bring this back over here. Okay, and let's go and find the brake. Stop light switch. So you see at the moment there, stop light switch is set to off. So all I'm going to do now is I'm going to take my white with the blue. We're going to give it 12 volts. And as I do, you're going to hear the relay click. And as that happens, you'll see stop light switch is now set to on. Off, on, off, on, off. Fantastic. Okay, so that's the brake switch on there. So off to sport manual mode now. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to our sport manual mode wire, which is our red and yellow. So we've got our red and yellow here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to push it into the green one. Okay, so in other words, I'm going to replicate the fact that it's in the car just to prove that the reason we do that is so that basically you can't have sports mode on at any particular time. Okay, it's only going to come on when you go into actual drive. And it's typical, my ignition wire has come loose. Okay, so what I've basically done now is I've technically activated sports mode or manual mode. Now obviously because we're not in drive and we're in park, you'll see that the sports mode selection switch is still set to off. So what I'm going to do now is we're going to go back over to there. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to move the switch over to drive. So there we're in park, there we're in reverse, there we're in neutral, and then as soon as I go to drive, see, so now instead of just drive being on, I've also got sports mode selection switch on. Okay, I'm just going to go leave it in drive for a second. We're going to come over here. So as you can see, the reason we give you the drive wire is so that basically the ECU stays happy. In your case, you've got the correct shifter, so you need that because that's where you're going to get your 12 volt supply for the drive. But if you go from drive obviously to neutral, the power for the sport mode switch will also cut off, which means you can never have the signals at the wrong time. Okay, so if I just literally, I'm just going to say, see there, so it's off, push it in, and now we've got it on. Okay, so you can see that's activating when it should. So I'm just going to put that in to make sure it's on. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we are going to go over to our shift up, shift down buttons, or wires in this case. So shift down, we've got is blue, red. Let me find that. There's the blue, red. Okay, so earth, obviously not a 12 volt supply for these. So I'm just going to dangle that up there. And then you'll see as I touch it, you're going to see shift down, goes to on, off, on, off, on, off. Okay, so that's shift down. Shift up is our blue, yellow, which is not stripped. Bear with me a second. I'm going to quickly strip that out now. Okay, so we've got our blue yellow wire strip there, got my little earth wire over there. So as I touch it, you're going to see that's obviously going to go, so we shift up, it's on, off, okay, see that sports mode has come off there. Right, so pull that back out again. So happy with all of that. Sports modes work, shift up, shift down works, so as long as you connect that correctly to your shifter, all of that's going to work as it should. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to go into park neutral switch and testing that. So as I already said, that is basically, and I do have another video on park neutral switches to show you how they work. The actual park neutral switch is not the signal that goes to the ECU, it's purely for the starter relay to engage or disengage it. So as you can see here now, we are in drive. So if I take my black with a yellow wire and I give it 12 volts, nothing. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch that over to park. Now you can see that we're in park, and if I touch this wire, I'm only going to do it for a brief second, but you'll see now we have starting. There you go. So that's all wired up correctly. Obviously the vehicle is not going to start if you're not in park or neutral, so that safety is there for you, so you don't have to worry about that. So now that that's all done, now what we're going to do is we're going to go into actually starting her up and doing all the testing over there. Now she is very loud, obviously she's got no exhaust on her. So I'm going to talk you through exactly what we're going to do now, again, just because obviously it's been a long video. So we're going to test the drive-by-wire by revving her. We're going to test the 2 VVT-i solenoids with the device exactly like we've done so far with like the fuel pump and the active test. We're going to go over to the dash cluster and we're going to check the tach signals coming through. We're going to pull each injector off one by one, just so you can hear the engine misfiring. when I pull off each one to show they're all working correctly. The starter will obviously be, well, you've already heard it go, so that works as it should do. We'll check the acoustic control induction system, this little valve at the back over here, make sure that's made its way down. And then obviously the last thing we'll do is go back to the codes. Obviously there were 0 codes, but I'll go into the gearbox section as well just to show you that there are codes there for the solenoids, etc., and everything is working as it should. So first thing I want to do now is we want to go back to engine. So remember, these are, in this newer model ones, the engine and gearbox are completely separate. Hence the reason I've got to go into the 2 separate ones through the different testing as I do. So I'm going to put my ear defenders on quickly because it's going to be very loud. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to run through the test. I'll keep talking. If you can hear me, great. If not, I've already gone through the list. You know exactly what we're doing step by step, but I will point to it as we do each test. Okay. So let's do this. Okay, so now we're going to start it up. Okay, sorry, at the last second I was just showing you the LED lights have gone out there. That was oil pressure and alternator. So that's all working as it should. Everything should be good there. As you can see, we've got 0 codes for the engine. Everything's plugged in, everything's working as it should do. And then obviously all the indicators like the tacho and everything is working. Obviously the tacho was out because it's a 6-cylinder from an IS. So obviously we're giving a 4-cylinder signal to a 6-cylinder. So obviously it was doing like 1500 RPM and that was showing just like a little bit above 1000. So obviously that's not correct. So that's all fine. So essentially when you get it your side, it's going to be really nice and easy. You're just going to drop it on. Everything's going to be labeled. You've got mounting points on this fuel rail on this side over here that you can obviously P-clamp it to. I showed you on the other side here where you're going to P-clamp it onto there. That'll keep it all nice and intact on the engine harness there. Okay. You've got your main starter power cable. So that's the one that you're going to have already on your car. Obviously we replaced the harness underneath. I'll actually show you photos at the end of what it looks like underneath, so you can see where it's plugged in. It is all labeled underneath as well, so you got knock 1, knock 2. So obviously standing at the back of the engine, this is bank 1 where cylinder 1 is, so that'll be knock 1. This is bank 2, and this is where cylinder 2 is, so this will be knock 2. So they are labeled underneath there for you like that. We've got your pedal with plenty of wire, so you should have no problems with there. It's 2 meters long. See, loads of wire there for you. And then obviously you've got all your earthing and stuff on your block. So you've got your earth points on the cylinder head here where your harness goes in. I normally advise to take the other hole underneath here and just run like an earth strap or a braided earth strap to your firewall from there. Usually where your gearbox mounts over there, you'll see on the gearbox mounting bolts, there's one that usually comes from there over to the firewall as well. And you've got your main one that goes underneath and bolts to the block, usually where your engine mounts are. And then coming down to your alternator, you've obviously got your main thick alternator cable, and that's obviously going to go sorry. Oh, hay fever. Apologies for that. You've got your main alternator cable here. So, apologies again. So I normally fuse at anything from like 120 to 140 amps. I know some vehicles you don't have it fused, but I always prefer it. If it's fused, it's less danger to you, and so on and so forth. So again, I'll leave it up to you. You decide what to do with that. But yeah, so that's about it really. Everything's going to come in. You've got your grommet over here in the firewall. Everything is straight plug in there. You're going to wire up this plug. So as I said, we've got all the wires there that are relevant for your shifter. So in terms of shift up, shift down, you know, the drive signal for that. We've got your reverse for your reverse lights to wire into that. You've got your OBD2, so you can plug that in for your diagnostics. You can also use that to pull data if you want to get a separate dash or something, or a tablet that you can then use something like Real Dash, or depending on what, I don't know if they support that sort of data from Toyota. But that's about it really. So you'll get your welcome pack. We'll send it to you by email, so you've got that in hard copy at all times. But yeah, that's it. So we'll send you photos of what it looks like all complete, so it's all nice and done. And any questions you have, please just feel free to ask us. But I'm going to box this up now, and we'll get it off to you in America. All right, but thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.